Good evening, and welcome back to the Placid Plastic Podcast. We're returning with our tier list here. We left off placing Microsoft's Xbox original in the B tier for
Right on.
stellar controller design.
Right on. So I guess we'll continue with the Game Boy Advance. Now, there's something I forgot to mention when we were talking about the Game Boy Color that also rings true with the Game Boy and also the Game Boy Advance, which is that all these handhelds used batteries.
Oh yeah.
And there's a big problem with that. Now, obviously, they would have indicator lights letting you know, like, hey, your battery's about to die soon. But these three fucking things burn through batteries so quickly. My dad and mom used to get so freaking mad at me because they buy these like big battery packs, and like half of them would be used on my freaking handhelds.
Yeah, and batteries are crazy expensive.
Yeah, even back then when we were young, batteries were still expensive. They seem to consistently always be expensive regardless of inflation. So
Yeah.
even back then, they'd get pissed at me. Like, why are you using all the batteries? Well, I got to play Pokemon. And another thing, too, especially with the Game Boy Advance, the freaking back plate was so easy to, like, fall off or dislodge.
Yeah, it was pretty flimsy.
I lost back plates for several of these advances that I have. And if I don't have a back plate, batteries are just going to fall out.
How many advances do you have?
I mean, I don't have any anymore because I have an SP, but when I was growing up, I had like 3.
Oh, okay.
One of them was my brother's. One I accidentally broke, and the other one I sold like a long, long time ago.
Okay.
But every single one had the backplate. The backplate eventually got lost, and I would have to use a freaking piece of duct tape to hold the batteries in place so that they wouldn't fall out and my game wouldn't shut off.
Well,
So
hey, easy way to replace your batteries, just rip off the thing. Batteries come right out with it.
Exactly, but man, I really hated the backplate. I hated like obviously Game Boy Color and the Game Boy originally used batteries, but something about the Advance, like it burned through batteries so much quicker. Maybe it's just because the games were more advanced, but I really just ate through batteries, and I didn't really like the console design for the handheld. It's just a very it's just kind of weirdly shaped.
Really, for
It's
the
just not-
Advance?
I mean, the SP, which we'll get to in a little bit, has such a far better design, and I think I just liked the Game Boy Color's design a lot more. I think the horizontal design of the regular Game Boy Advance is just kind of weird to me. But I mean, it's all right. There weren't as many colors as the Game Boy Color.
True.
I had a purple and 2 black Game Boy Advances, but I know there wasn't like light blue or green or anything like that. I'm pretty sure it was just black, this purple, and silver. I could be wrong, but yeah, not as many colors as the Game Boy Color. Really bad battery usage, but I mean, it played Game Boy Advance games, which were far better than, far more, again, advanced
Yeah,
than regular Game Boy.
You look at the Game Boy originals and the Game Boy Color, they're like pocket NESs. The Game Boy Advance is a pocket SNES, so it's a direct upgrade as far as power goes. Just taking the cartridges and making them smaller. It was very impressive for what it did. But yeah, lacking a backlight, but I liked it better design-wise than the Color, because the Color, it's a good size for a kid with small hands. Probably never thought much about it because of that. The Game Boy Advance was wider, it was bigger. It kind of follows the trend that handhelds have leaned more towards, in getting longer and being wider for your hands to hold easier. I know if I tried to play an SP now, I would think it's too damn small. And even when I first tried it, I was really uncomfortable because I'd played a Game Boy Advance way more, and I thought it was really cramped to play. But I thought the design was an improvement. I thought the having the bumper buttons on the edges, the shape was a better holding shape than the Game Boy Color would have been. It felt like a controller with a screen on it, in a way.
Fair enough. I think given all those points, I wouldn't mind putting it above the regular Game Boy in C tier.
Okay.
I just think, the lack of colors, the lack of cool designs that, the Game Boy Color had, and the abhorrent battery usage really prevent it from me putting it, in B tier. But I mean, what do you think?
It's hard because, generally speaking, I wouldn't necessarily say, yeah, that's a B tier, considering what we've put in B tier already. But then I look at the Game Boy Color and I'm like, do I actually think that's a better designed thing than the Advance? And I just don't think so. But I have pushed the Xbox and the PlayStation up, so I think it's fair that I push this down.
Okay, so yeah, I think top of C is fine.
That works for me. It's an improvement on the SNES because that's all it really is, and not really the greatest thing ever. We can move to the GameCube.
I love the GameCube design. I love it. I love that it's a little cube with a little handle in the back. You don't see that in any other console before or since.
Yeah, the handle is really
got a little handle.
Cool piece.
I think the controller is it's one of the best controllers Nintendo ever made. I love the GameCube controller. I love how it feels. Those things are durable too. I've never had any of the buttons stick. I've never had anything break off it. I think it's a great controller. I think maybe the Z button is the only thing I could like. I don't really like how small the Z button is, and it's got this weird bump in the center of it. So the Z button's just kind of weird, but I love the GameCube. You know, actually, you can detach the little jewel on the top of the middle and put something else in there.
That's right. Yeah, the thing on the disc, a lid, right?
Yeah, and I have a custom. I put a little custom retro wave like Miami '80s Vice thing on the center of my GameCube for the jewel that I got off Etsy. So I think that's really cool that they actually did. And it's not like you have to peel it off. Like in the lid of my Xbox, you just push a pin and it pops off.
GameCube.
So the GameCube. The fact that they did that was really, really cool. And I love that you can attach the Game Boy player at the bottom. Unlike the N64, it actually has uses. The little mini discs are hilarious. I always thought it was funny that they did these mini discs for GameCube and then went back to regular CDs afterwards.
That's really the most incredible thing. They're like, we don't believe in disc gaming. Like, maybe if they're small discs.
Maybe if they're mini. But I love the GameCube. I think it's amazing. I have like no huge complaints. I don't think it's like the most perfect console. I think given what I've talked about, I just find it a really solid, great. I have no problem making it our first A tier console.
Okay.
What do you think?
I think it's time for Whiskey's hot takes.
Here we go.
All right, so I'm gonna piss off a lot of people right now, and I'm gonna piss off some very specific people right now because I couldn't care less what they think.
Oh no.
Super Smash Bros. Melee sucks ass now, okay? It's an old game and it plays bad. I don't care. You're wrong. It was great when it came out. Perfect. It had its time. It's dead. Leave it alone. The GameCube controller, I don't like for the GameCube for when it was a thing. Absolutely, it was a great controller. I did have problems with the button sticking though. I had the A button was always a problem and the Z button more so. It was always a crap button. And the triggers, they were... It felt like they should have been pressure-based, and then they clicked when you pulled them in all the way. And so you just had this extra, like... It felt like so much to pull in before it actually activated. And I feel like that was completely backwards. If you look at the... the PS5 controller... or the Xbox 360 controller, they're hair triggers, you know? You can just tap them halfway and they'll do the thing. They'll get the job done that way. The GameCube controller, oh man, when people were raving about, oh, you can play Smash 4 with the GameCube stuff. This is the only way to play. It's like, you are crazy. You have lost your damned mind. The C-stick, the thumbstick, these buttons are objectively worse than the buttons that came out on the Wii U, even, and the Switch. Wii U and Switch were way better controllers to play with than the GameCubes. GameCube is a shit controller compared to anything that's come out past it. Excluding the Wii. Wii was trash.
What's funny too is you can use the GameCube controller on the Switch now too, because you can just plug the GameCube adapter to the side of the dock to play Smash Ultimate.
Yeah, that's right.
So they won't let it die. But the funny thing too is they re-released GameCube controllers for Smash Wii U, and the quality of those controllers are terrible. Like
Are
the
they?
plastic is way. Oh yeah, because I have it. I'm looking at the original controller that I have, and the Smash 4 version. The plastic is way cheaper. The buttons are worse. They really cheaped out for the re-release. But
That's pretty sad.
I see your point. I do think the triggers, now that I'm thinking about it, aren't that great. This is our first divide because where would you, if I wasn't here, where would you put it?
Well,
the GameCube.
the thing is, I agree with all your other points about the GameCube. I thought it's a great console. It's got a very nice design. I would give it the same kind of points that I gave to the Xbox. The Xbox, it's what it say. Gosh, it's what it says it is.
It's a box with an X on it.
It's an Xbox. Perfect. The GameCube, it's a cube that plays games. Yeah, and it's got a handle. You could bring it around with you. I don't know why you would, but you could. It has great aspects about it. The controller by default, it's not a bad controller. Like I said with the Xbox, that asymmetric design, it comes with that thumbstick up top, other thumbstick on the bottom. That's a good shape. It's a good design. The controller was a little, I think, rough to hold in a way. Like the curvature was inverse to what my hands are shaped with. Maybe it's because I've got giant hands or something. They're really not that big, but the relative to other things, I can't say that it's a good controller, but that's only relative to other things. For what it is and how we're trying to rate things evenly, I think it's still a great thing. I would definitely put it up. It's definitely leading towards the top. The GameCube was a good console, absolutely. The requirement of memory cards pisses me off, because those were expensive, or at least they felt expensive, and they, you compare them to modern data storage, absolute garbage, right? Here's 30 megabytes. Like, wow. I can put a JPEG on here. JPEGs are way smaller. JPEGs are the ones that are small. I could put a PNG on here. But no, other than that, it is a good console, and I would rate it high. I did probably spend more time playing an Xbox than I did the GameCube, up until I had Smash.
You want to do like high B, like right above Game Boy Color?
I think it's about time Game Boy Color gets dethroned. That's for sure.
I think you should put it right at the top of B then.
Okay. We can also move that one up as well. I think.
If need be.
Yeah, I think our criteria is really sharp right now. It's really high.
Gotcha. Game Boy SP. I'm also willing to put this in A rank. I'll tell you why. I know you said the buttons are small, and that if you got it's kind of annoying due to how small and how close the buttons are. The fact that you can fold it and fit it into your pocket perfectly was a godsend when I was a kid. I love that the screen is more protected that way. The fact that you could fold it, make it more compact. You could actually, I think the sound quality for the SP was great. The first console to have like we said way back in part 1, you could push the little button near the top of the bottom part and have the light brighten or dimmer. I think that's amazing. I love all the they brought back multiple colors for the SP. I love that the little 2 bumpers, you can adjust how big the screen is too if you tap the bumpers before the game starts. I just love the SP so much. I think it's perfect. It's one of the best handhelds they've ever made. I really, really great, really durable too. Doesn't take batteries either. Finally, thank God. So no more back plates falling off and your batteries falling out. I think with all of that, I have no problem making it our first A rank. But what do you think?
I'll agree with you. Like I said, I thought the hands were for children, and well, maybe that is who they're aiming it towards. And I got used to playing the Game Boy Advance. That doesn't necessarily mean that the Game Boy Advance is better in that design. But like you said, it being a foldable console that you kept in your pocket, incredible, absolutely groundbreaking stuff. And it is the most amazing piece of SNES hardware. Being able to play all the same games, really, but in the best way you could possibly do it. It was the best iteration of its kind, and it's better than the Game Boy Color, better than the Game Boy Advance. It definitely stands above them all. Yeah, and the backlight, it's a you can't not have a backlight these days. Could you imagine if all of our cell phones didn't have backlights?
Be terrible.
It would
Be
be
very, very bad.
be unusable.
Couldn't use them at night.
Yeah, period. Well, maybe that's a good thing.
Fair enough. But yeah, Game Boy SP A rank.
All right.
Now, the next one is Sega Dreamcast, the end of Sega making consoles. Now, the controller is very unique. It's the only controller that has a small little screen on it. And there were a lot of Dreamcast games. The ones that I played actually utilized the screen in very fun ways. Like, I actually played Resident Evil 2 on the Dreamcast once, and the little screen on your controller would track your health for you.
Oh, that's nice.
So yeah, so if you got bit by a zombie, it would let you know, hey, you're in caution. Or what was really cool too is it would tell you what level of caution you were, because it was like, is it like the level of caution to where you could take one more bite and you'll still be in caution, or is it the level of caution where if you take one more bite you're going to be in danger?
Huh.
So it would show you different levels of your health rather than just fine, caution, danger. It would also keep track of your ammo count for whatever gun you had on you. So you don't have to go to the menu and see how many bullets you have. You can just track it on a little screen.
The original Wii U.
Original Wii U. Very interesting. The console just kind of looks like a poor man's PlayStation 1.
Yep.
To be honest with you. And even though it had the screen, the controller is not the most comfortable to use.
Yeah, it looks dreadful. It's
not that fun. I didn't really enjoy using the controller that much. I think because it looks like a discount Safeway PlayStation. I think because the screen saves it, though, from being dreadful, just because of how unique and interesting it is. I don't mind putting it at the very end of C, like the very, like almost D tier. But that screen is so unique and interesting that I can't help but put it at the bottom of C.
I was gonna say, I think the screen is something that's got to give it points. It's an innovation. That was the word I was looking for. Innovation.
Oh, for part one, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, like it is just it looks like a discount PlayStation 1 when you see it, but the controller adds something that is a depth that honestly I'm sad got given up on in the way games are developed now. The way the consoles are now. But the rest of it, yeah, it's kind of but that controller is a step in the right direction in design. And it's a shame that even Nintendo took a step back on their weird shenanigans.
Yeah, and unfortunately this was the end of Sega making consoles. So yeah, I think end of C is perfect for it.
Perfect.
All right, here we go. I've been waiting for these two. These next line of consoles, honestly, for a while now, I've been waiting to do. I actually want to start with the fat PlayStation before we get to Slim.
Of course. I'm going to reorganize some of these to be in the right order.
Yeah. Here's the funny thing. I didn't grow up with PlayStation 2. I was a GameCube, N64, Super Nintendo, and then when I was in high school, I had the Xbox 360 and PlayStation. I didn't grow up with PS2. But I loved this console. It's really, really cool. I like the controller. Start of the controller. It was a step in the right direction. It's not the best controller, especially nowadays. Talk about controllers, like the older they get, the worse they turn out. PlayStation controllers nowadays are so bad, quality-wise. Like, it is very hard to find a controller that's still functional one way or another. The controller is whatever to me, I don't really like it. I think knock off some points for how bad the controller is, but I think the fat console's really cool. Um, I like how it was the first console that you could put on its side. You could lay it. There's like two ways you could set up the console. You could have it long ways, vertical, or horizontal. Um, and it was the first console that you could do that for. Yeah, I thought it was really cool. I think the design is really cool. It's actually the design of the console is based on, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, and I could send you the picture after we're done this episode, on the Sony building at the time that was in Japan, if I'm not mistaken. And I'm going to send you a picture after this so you can post it on the screen.
Okay.
But yeah, it's based on, I think, either the Sony headquarters building at the time. And I can find it later. But yeah, I think it's just a really solid design console. It had some issues that were fixed in the Slim, which I can't wait to get into. The disc tray would often break, but I still think it's a really solid console. Really cool design, but kind of crappy controller. So I think with all of that being said, I wouldn't mind putting it in B right before the GameCube. So between GameCube and Game Boy Color.
Interesting. Okay.
What do you think?
I would say, for the most part, yes. I spent very little time playing the PS2, so I don't have much to say in regards to it. I did not like its controller. I think it's part of the reason Xbox became the dominant controller, is how it was just... It wasn't an improvement. It was a PlayStation 1 controller, but black. Was really all it was. It was just the same exact thing, and a PS1 controller with the thumbsticks was not the best version of it. It is really not better. So it's definitely above the PS1 in regards to all that. I would say because of those faults on the PS2's controller, I think Xbox's controller is better than that. And okay. I think as far as the quality of both objects, they'd be pretty similar otherwise. So I feel like it would be a runner-up, but in Xbox would be much closer together than having something in between them.
You want to put it between PlayStation 1 and Xbox then?
I can put it below or I can put it above. I would prefer it Xbox above it, but that could just be user bias since I spent way more time playing an Xbox than I ever did a PS2. I only played a PS2 at my friend's house.
I do really like the design of the console. And I like that you could set it up two different ways. I mean, it's the first console you
That's
can do
right. That. I think that does earn it points. So yeah, it'll be above the Xbox.
Okay.
That's a good point.
Now, it's time for David's hot takes.
Okay.
PlayStation 2 Slim goes in S rank. I'll tell you why.
You better.
Number 1. Show me a console that's thinner than this thing. This is the thinnest fucking console I've ever seen in my life. The fact that they took the fat PS2 and literally shrank it down to like a fourth of its original size is absurd. I don't know how they pulled it off. I've got a PS2 Slim right next to me on my desk right now. And every time I look at it, I'm just like, how did they make something so freaking small and thin?
Yeah, it's smaller than the original PlayStation 2, PlayStation as well, right?
Yeah, it's I'm looking at all the consoles, not handhelds, just strictly consoles on this list. There is nothing thinner than this thing. It like I honestly like I'm just like I don't know who like figured this would work out, but the fact that it's able to run PS2 games in something so thin is just so marvelous to me. They fixed all the errors from the PS2 fat. It's a top loader instead of a disc tray. So that gets rid of the tray breaking.
Yeah, trays are not a great idea. I hate
the fact that it's top loader's perfect. The disc laser was improved, so games load faster. All the issues that plagued the fat PS2 were perfected in this. And the fact that it's so freaking small makes it easier to take to other places. That was the problem with the fat. And with consoles, as consoles progress, they get bigger and bulkier because they got to put all this crap in it.
Yep.
Makes it harder to transport these things to and fro. Like when we get to the base PS3 and the Xbox One, It looks like a freaking VHS player. Spoilers. That's not going to be highly ranked. The fact that they made this so freaking thin and small is just incredible to me. It's just like, how did they do this? They fixed all the issues with PS2 fat. The controller's still the same. I mean, you know, I could definitely see the argument for, the controller still sucks, but just looking at the console itself, it's like it's just such a marvel in how they were able to pull it off. And I think just because of that, because one, it's the thinnest console on this list, and they somehow took this big, bulky, fat PS2 and were like, what if we just made it super tiny and it works perfectly? And it's even better than the fat PS2 is incredible to me. And they haven't done anything like it since. Every time they slim down a console, because they did it for the PS3 and the 4 and the 5, it's basically almost the same size. Maybe a teeny bit smaller, but the size difference between the slim and the fat with the PS2 is incredible to me. And I think because of that, that's why I put it on an S rank.
I think that's totally fair. I think being the most impressive piece. Now, yeah, it's not nearly as capable as modern things, but it is unbelievably thin. Yeah, like I don't think you could find a modern. Well, okay, that's a dumb thing to say. I was gonna say a modern CD player that's as small, but there's not no disc reader that does something like the PlayStation 2 does is really capable of being that size, unless you're getting something I don't even know, like something that just reads and write discs, like a workstation piece, like that attaches to a computer, and those are only going to be small because they're peripherals, they're added onto it. Something that's as capable as playing these games, absolutely, it's the most powerful thing in the smallest size that you'll get, outside of course, like you can argue the Switch is smaller, but the Switch is less of a console and more of a handheld, and if you add the dock into the equation, it becomes much thicker. So it does kind of fall out of its place with that. So I think the PS2, I think it's something, even with the criteria we're not really taking into account, it is one of the best consoles, period. And the PlayStation 2 being the most sold console in the world, right? I'm sure, in no doubt, the Slim helps.
One of the reasons why it was so the best-selling console ever is, like, think of the marketing. Like, look at how thin it is. You can take it anywhere you want.
Yeah,
and back then that was a huge draw. Like, oh, I could just slip it in my backpack and take it to a friend's house.
Oh, you ever watch Stuart Little?
Yes.
You ever watch Stuart Little too?
Maybe.
All right, I'm not entirely sure which one this happened in. I think it's the second one, where the kid, Stewart's brother, I guess, he has his friend, and at one scene, and I thought this was crazy. I thought it was the most psychotic thing because I had a PlayStation 1, and that was small, and I knew the PlayStation 2 was huge compared to it. And there's a scene where he's like, hey, you want to play some games? I brought my PS2. And I thought, what the hell? He brought a whole PS2? What a crazy kid. And it was the big one, because that's what it shows. They're playing like FIFA or something. And then I think that's when Stuart goes out onto the city in his car. Something weird like that. I don't remember. But I thought that was the craziest thing. But yeah, the PS2, it makes it doable. The PS2 is the PS do. And that's S for Sony. Okay.
There you go.
We can move
But yeah, S tier. Easily.
Okay.
It's just incredible. Original 360. Now, I got a lot of love for the 360. It's my high school years. But man, when you talk about the original Xbox 360, nothing is more iconic than the Red Ring of Death. So much so,
that's true,
that even the official Microsoft Xbox YouTube channel did a documentary on the history of Xbox, and they had a whole video dedicated to the Red Ring of Death.
Not a good.
I remember my brother got a 360 when he was in college, and he brought it back home, and it red ringed. And you could actually send those consoles to Microsoft, and they would pay for shipping. That you'd pay to ship it there, and they would ship it back free of charge. and they would have to fix these consoles.
Mhm.
And I think it was I'm pretty sure it's like 1 in every 4 or 1 in every 5 original white Xbox 360s would red ring. It was really, really terrible. And there were no Wi-Fi capabilities too, so you had to buy these things called bunny ears. They have to attach to the back of the original 360.
Yep.
It wasn't until the Slim where you could have Wi-Fi without having to buy something else. I love the 360 controller. It's like you could see what they were building towards making the best gaming controller. Because I know you like the PS5 DualSense. I love the Xbox One controller. I think the Xbox One controller is one of the best controllers ever made. You could see where they were almost there with the 360. There are still things about the controller for the 360 I don't like. It wears down really quickly. I feel like the buttons and the control stick are prone to breaking down over time way quicker than other controllers of that era.
All right.
And honestly, I don't really like the white Xbox 360s. I think the white with the ugly gray doesn't really look that aesthetically pleasing. And I mean, the failures of the constant breakdowns of the original 360 have been well documented at this point.
Yeah, sure.
And I think because of its reputation as prone to failure, honestly, I'd probably put it at the top of D tier.
Top of D tier?
Let me explain a little bit further.
Oh,
I can't think of another console on this list. The original 360, not the Slim. The original 360. I can't think of another console that's more known for how often it broke down.
That's true.
And all the other consoles we've covered so far, not any one of them has this long legacy of, oh, this broke down all the time. What a piece of shit. I mean, again, the fact the Microsoft YouTube channel dedicated a whole video to what it was like with the Red Ring of Death speaks to how much of a technical. I mean, it's very, revolutionary for its time, but at the same time, it's kind of a piece of crap.
Okay. We are rating it based on how it performs, and that's bad performance. Like you said, and like I said a few times, the Xbox 360 controller is probably one of the best designs, not necessarily best designed, like you said. It had sticky buttons sometimes too. No matter how many times you try to clean it, they'll still just they'll wiggle, they'll fall to the side, and they'll stay pressed down. Like, they weren't great. The design of itself, and the fact that the original 360 still had multiple designs, like there's the arcade one, which didn't come with a hard drive.
And the Elite.
And there's, the regular Elite, not including the 360 Elite Gen 3, and then the S Gen 2. See, the S I thought was the Elite. So this list here is a little confusing for me. So I guess I can respect what you said.
It's just, I love the 360, but man, the base 360 is the only console I can think of where it's like, oh yeah, that's the one that broke down all the time. That's the one that red ringed all the time.
I will say mine lasted an incredibly long time. It lasted very long without getting rings, and then when it did get rings, the solution that I found was to pull off the plastic housing of the power plug and wiggle one of the wires back into its housing.
Jeez.
And it was fine. And it worked perfectly up until the disc tray started jamming and I couldn't get any discs in or out. I tried to take apart the whole thing. You couldn't take it apart enough to pull the tray out. It was just impossible. So the 360 is trashed somewhere now with a disc stuck inside of it.
So are you okay with putting it at the top of D tier?
I'll keep it in the top of D.
Now, on the flip side, 360 Slim, A rank, easy A rank. It took everything that was wrong with the original 360 and fixed it completely. No more red rings, built-in Wi-Fi, sleek, cool design. I love the design of the 360 Slim. They started this with the original 360, but they started it they kept introducing limited editions. Like, I have a Gears of War 3 Xbox 360.
That's right. That was cool stuff. I do like that.
You could do Halo. There was a Halo Reach one. There was a Star Wars one. There's plenty of others that I'm forgetting, but this is where that started to take off on the 360 era of like limited edition designs. Improved the fan, because if you look on the side of the 360 Slim, it's got a whole open section for air to blow out. The original 360 didn't have.
Mm-hmm.
Hard drive. The problem with the original 362 is the hard drive, you had to like latch onto the top of the 360.
Yeah, it had like a button that you would have to push to disconnect it and then pull it out.
Yeah, and that was prone to breaking a lot. I had a friend whose hard drive that broke and he couldn't use it anymore because you couldn't play the original 360 without that hard drive.
Yeah.
They fixed that with the Slim because it has a built-in memory unit. Like you still, like if you want to play a lot of games, you still got to put in an SSD. But they built in the memory unit into the Slim. So literally every single issue, the disc tray was improved. The original 360 didn't actually take HDMI.
You're right. No, it did not.
Yeah, so the Slim takes HDMI. So I mean, it's the perfect. It, in my opinion, to this day, is the best designed Xbox console.
A pure upgrade. Okay. That makes up for the D tier that the original 360 went through.
I mean, I almost want to put it in S tier because, I think it is the best Microsoft designed console ever.
It's the definite peak of Microsoft's consoles. Everything
Would you put it in S tier then?
I was honestly, it's kind of was leaning towards with the original one, but with all its glaring issues, it doesn't belong there. But with all those issues primarily solved, then yeah, I think it, as far as design goes, capability goes, the controller design goes, I think it's one of the winners.
I think I'm okay putting it in S tier then.
All right, I'll move that up.
The Xbox 360e, which I don't know if it stands for Elite.
That's what
it was basically.
Would have thought, but it looks really boxy, and I thought the Elite looked more like the Slim.
It actually came out the same time that the Xbox One came out, and it was basically maybe it stands for economy, because I'm pretty sure this came out and the whole thing was like, it's an affordable.
Shit, you're right.
It's an affordable Xbox 360, that you can buy, and I almost didn't want to put it on this list because I played it once at a friend's house and I was like, okay, it's just the 360 Slim all over again, but not as cool. Like it was just kind of, it's like the Xbox One's little brother because it almost looks like an Xbox One, but not really.
Yeah, it's just a worse Xbox is what it looks like. Worse 360.
I honestly probably just put it in either B or C just because it's like, why did they even make this?
Yeah, a completely unnecessary creation.
I'd probably just put it in C because it's like, why is it even here? Why did they do this?
Yeah, that's fine. C tier.
All right. Now we're on to the line of DSs. Now, which DS, before we get into this, did you have a DS and which DS did you have?
Only one I had was the original DS, and it was like a hand-me-down from a friend.
Okay. I actually hate the design of the original DS, like the very first. I think the design for the original is very weird and kind of dumb. And because it was the first type of DS that they ever made, there were a lot of issues with it hardware-wise. The hinges were prone to breaking really easily.
Hinges were bad.
The touchscreen was not that responsive yet.
Yeah, it was like remember the ones at work, the touchscreens? They're like a plastic film over a screen, and the film pushes down onto the screen, and that's how you actually get an input from it. That's the same kind of thing on the original DS, and it was also really easy to scratch if you didn't use the proper stylus.
Yep, I think it was a good start, but they made so much improvements with the DSi and the DS Lite and the DS XL and eventually the 3DS that I just think, even though it was the starting point, I think there's just a lot of glaring issues with it, and I probably put it somewhere in C tier, maybe even D tier, because there's so many issues I had with it. I really, really hated this one.
It's really ugly. I think the buttons weren't great. The stylus was nothing special, and the touchscreen was faulty. So I think performance-wise, I would put it above the 360.
Okay, we'll
maybe.
put it in D. We'll put it in D tier. I think there was. I think you could only get silver. I've only seen these in silver.
Yeah, they might have had a black one, but yeah, I've only ever seen a silver one.
All right, next one. Let's do DS Lite next because I'm pretty sure the Lite came out after the before the I.
Okay.
The Lite was basically when they started fixing issues with the original DS. I actually had the DS Lite first. This was my first DS. The hinges were still kind of crappy, not as bad, but
They were still flimsy.
they were still easy to break. Touchscreen could still scratch really easily. It wasn't until the DSi that they started figuring out, okay, this is what we should do. But a way better design than the original DS, and they actually started bringing in more colors. Like I saw red, blue, black. Here's a silver, white, pink. I've seen pink DS lights. So they definitely improved the availability of colors. Much better design, way more compact. But still some issues here and there.
Didn't these also have, and this might be true for the SP as well, did these have like a Bluetooth you could connect to other systems that way? They're wireless?
They did not have Bluetooth. That wasn't until the DSi.
Oh, okay.
So I would probably put it in C tier. Probably between the Game Boy and Game Boy Advance. Like, it's definitely cool. One thing we didn't touch on is it's very cool that they had a touchscreen. This is the first handheld that you have a touchscreen.
That is true. That the innovation there to really add that extra dimension of control is massive. That is huge. But the rest of it doesn't add up to being a better version.
Yeah, I think the two screens and the touchscreen for the regular DS was great, but the regular DS had a bunch of problems I already listed. And I think because the DS was starting to improve that, I have no problem putting it in C. Again, I'd probably put it between Game Boy Advance and Game Boy, because it's like you could tell they're starting to figure out how to make this thing work, but there's still some really big issues.
Yep. Perfect.
All right, the DSi. I really like the DSi because I think the DSi is when they really started figuring out, like, okay, this is what a perfect DS is. Hinges were great. The touchscreen was durable. They added Bluetooth. They had all these cool new features, like you could take photos. The menu. It's actually kind of funny. The interface for the DSi is pretty much the same as a 3DS. So like the interface for like how things are organized, and back then you could buy software on the DS store. You can't do that anymore, obviously. Same with the 3DS and the Wii U. But just a lot of really great features of the DSi, super durable. Really, buttons felt great. Touchscreen was responsive. The lighting for the DSi was super bright, and you could adjust it, and had all these cool features and whatnot. And really, really solid handheld. I definitely think it's a B tier handheld. Just really, really solid. Probably put it between the original Xbox and PlayStation 2, just for like, I think that's when they really started solidifying it as a really decent handheld.
Okay. Yeah. Sounds good. It does look cleaner too, which I do like.
Yeah. DSi XL.
Just a bigger version.
It's just a bigger version. I think honestly, just put it right next to the DSi.
Yeah.
It's just a bigger version of the same thing. So, it is what. The Wii Mini. Let's just do the Wii first.
Yeah, let's do the regular Wii first.
Look, I think you and I could agree. There was a time when I used to think the Wii, like way back when I first got a Wii, when I first was playing the Wii, way back in like 2007, 2008, I thought, oh, the Wii remote's really cool. The fact that I can point it at the TV and do things is great. Nowadays, I fucking hate the Wii remote.
Yeah.
I hate it.
My brother was like the hype man for all new technology. So like he'd be like, "Oh, dude, look how cool this is," and he'd tell me about the whole thing, and I'd be like, "Oh, that does sound amazing." And so I thought this is the greatest thing ever before I actually, spent a lot of time with it or anything like that. And it's been the same thing with video games for a while too. When I learned about Fallout 3, I thought there was going to be a full like integrated weather system that went through like the seasons and the day and night cycle. Like it was this big expansive thing that you could do anything in. The same thing with the Wii. It was like, oh yeah, it's like It's the most immersive way you could play. Like, you swing your arm and it swings like a sword. The coolest way you could play a video game. And it was not that.
Yeah, it's funny. I have a very distinct memory when they were presenting when E3 was still a thing. Rest in peace, E3, by the way.
The good old days.
I remember way back in 2010, they had a showcase for Skyward Sword, and they made a big deal out of it. You can swing your sword, and however you swing the Wii remote is how Link's gonna swing his sword. And it was the shittiest presentation Nintendo ever had because the Wii and the Wii remote was not cooperating, and I just remember watching this presentation. I was like, "This looks terrible." Game came out, it's terrible. I hate the Wii remote. I hate the Wii sensor bar. I hate playing Wii games now because I can't stand the Wii remote. And honestly, we hate the GameCube controller, but if they didn't have the option to use GameCube controller for some Wii games, oh my god.
Yeah.
The fact that they released a Wii Classic controller for people that hated the Wii remote just goes to show you how bad the Wii remote was.
Yeah.
I hate it.
Everything about the Wii is the beginning of Nintendo's like fall as far as a leading console creator. They this is their worst decision. Not necessarily because it ended horribly or anything like that. Like, it was a good thing for them to do because it needed to happen. They needed to work with motion controls. They needed to figure it out. They needed to work out the kinks. And the Wii was a perfect stepping stone in doing that. It's a very simple thing. It's a white box with a disc, not tray, but disc slot, right? And the controller was a cool idea, a wand that you would swing around, but it wasn't great. It wasn't very effective. People have glaring issues, so much so that they had to release the Wii Motion Plus as an addition, which is ridiculous considering that was the entire thing of your controller in the first place.
Yeah, I forgot the original Wii remotes. You had to buy the stupid Wii Motion Plus.
Yeah, so like, oh, you want to use this game and play it like this? Well, you need this accessory to make it actually work well enough to be properly utilized. And that's just a bad fucking move.
I forgot how stupid that was. You can't play this without the Wii Motion Plus. Dude, fuck the controller, dude. Fuck this console.
It was not. There are definitely problems with it, and it had some really cool aspects. Like, you could play. Which Call of Duty was it? Was it Black Ops?
It was Black Ops, yeah.
Yeah, you could play Call of Duty. They had like the frame where you would click the controllers into, and you could like aim around. It was like the original steps into having your home arcade, playing House of the Dead with that sounds awesome. If that was what that game was
turns out it was not awesome.
It was not awesome, but it had a lot of great aspects, but much more glaring issues that supersede those. So this is an easy D or F tier in my opinion.
I'm gonna put this near the bottom of D, and the only reason I don't put it in F is because the Wii Mini exists.
All right, well, I think I know where that's going.
The Wii Mini goes in F tier because it's all the bad things about the Wii, except you can't play GameCube games. They got rid of that. So, like,
wow.
Why the fuck would I buy a Wii Mini instead of a Wii? Like, there's no fucking... I played this once, and I was like, this is so stupid.
That's sad. That's really sad.
Wii Mini gets an F for failure. Fuck the Wii. I hate the Wii.
It gets an F for fuck the Wii.
And there's so many... The problem is, it's like, I love Mario Galaxy 2, and I like Brawl a lot. And there are, like Donkey Kong Country Returns. There are a handful of decent Wii games. Man, I fucking hate the controllers so much.
Well, the best thing about those games is that you didn't actually play them like a Wii game. You just played them. The most Wii aspect about it was the little star shooting thing that you would do in Super Mario Galaxy. But other than that, you were just playing a platformer.
Yeah, they should have just fucking let you use the game controller for that because, man. Anyway, fuck the Wii.
Yeah.
Moving on.
Let's hit that PlayStation.
Now, the original fat PlayStation 3. Man, this thing is a hunk. This thing is a hunky piece of shit.
When you call it a hunk, that's a positive connotation.
Yeah, no. Sorry, my brain broke for a second. It is a big behemoth of a console.
It's massive.
It's been well documented at this point that developers hated developing for the PlayStation 3. Very complex hardware. if it wasn't a PlayStation 3 exclusive, chances are it ran worse than 360.
Oh yeah.
And the original fat PS3s, it's one of the worst video game reveals of all time. The only thing that's worse is the Xbox One reveal. But the PS3 had a very infamous reveal where it's like, because the 360 was revealed before the PS3, and the 360 had at the time a really affordable price for a new game console, and Sony reveals their PS3 and it's like $550 in 2005. And their whole thing is, oh, well, it's more expensive because it can do Blu-rays and it can do this. And it's like, I'm not going to fucking pay $550 for that. No way.
Yeah. Way too overpriced for what it gave you.
I actually really hate the PS3 controller.
Is it any different from the PS2 controller?
See, that's the problem. Is there's no difference.
Okay.
At least with the Xbox original and the 360 and the One and the Series X, is they made improvements to each controller.
Yeah.
The PS3 is just the PS2 but without the cord, the controller.
Oh, that's right. They were wireless.
And they barely held the charge. I swear I've had to charge my PS3 controller more than any other controller I've ever had. The fat PS3 had a lot of issues with the fan. They was prone to overheating a lot. That was the main issue, is that it would overheat and destroy the internals. Especially if you try to play like a more end cycle PS3 game like Last of Us. Apparently Last of Us is like almost impossible to play on a fat PS3.
Oh, wow.
Because it'll overheat really quickly. It was kind of cool at the very, very beginning of the fat PS3's life cycle. It was backwards compatible. But they had to get rid of that really quickly because it would destroy the consoles because of all the crap that was shoved into this coffin of a shell.
Yeah.
I really don't like the fat PS3. It's not like fuck the Wii levels of bad, but I would probably put it in D tier, probably next to the Xbox 360 original.
Sounds good. Yeah, I agree. The PS3 was just it's clunky, it's ugly, and it was not a. It had some great aspects to it, but those aspects weren't really realized until the later gens of the same console. And
yeah,
no, they lose points for not improving their controller at all, not even trying.
Yeah, they didn't even try. It's stupid.
3 generations and they use the same fucking controller? No.
Yeah. Oh gosh. PS3 Slim, far better design than the Fat. However, the weird thing, and this actually happened to the Slim I had recently, is that apparently the disk drives were more prone to failure than the Fat PS3.
Well, that's sad.
So they fixed the fan and the overheating issue, but the disk drives break way easier. And the Slim that I had broke. The disk drive broke. And I went through 2 separate Slims. Both had disk drives break.
Are these the Gen 2 or Gen 3s you're talking
Gen
about?
2.
Okay.
Gen 2. The Gen 3 is called the Super Slim, actually.
It looks very small, to be honest.
Yeah, I have a Super Slim now, but we'll get to that in a minute. But yeah, the Slim, far better design. They improved a lot of things. Still same crappy controller. However, the disk drive was more prone to failure. Okay. But it did improve a lot of the original Fat 360. So I have no problem putting it in C, high C, probably right after the Atari 2600. So it'd be Game Boy, DS, Game Boy, PS3 Slim. So between the Game Boy and 2600.
Oh, yeah. Gotcha. Perfect.
You okay with that?
Yeah, no, I never really, I don't know anything about the other PS3s. I only ever really played with the big fat one.
All right, I'm going to do this last PS3, and then we should probably wrap up the second video. We're about to hit, I believe, an hour or at least 50 minutes.
Yeah, we're pretty close. So
let me wrap up with the Super Slim. They fixed all the issues with the Slim, the disk drive, because instead of the 2, so if you could see, the way the Super Slim works is it's actually a top loader. You slide open the top part, put the disc in, slide it closed. And that's because top loaders traditionally are less prone to failure than standard inserts and disc trays. So they fixed that with the Super Slim. So no more disc drive failures. Venting is great. It's a small, compact. It's the most compact PS3 that they made. Super light, solid console. Still same crappy controller, but all the issues of the Fat and Slim are fixed. So B tier is appropriate for this one.
Yeah, I was thinking that each one goes up a tier, so that's fine.
I think I would put this probably between Xbox and PlayStation 1. Just because I fixed everything and ended the PS3 on a high note.
All right, perfect. Well, and that takes us to the end of part 2. Who would have thought that we'd actually have so much more consoles than restaurants?
Yeah.
That's not even including the ones we're not doing. My goodness.
Yeah. That'd be a 5 or 6 parter at that point.
Hot damn. Well, you know what? As progress update, let us know what you think so far, how we're doing, how you're doing, and where you'd like to move some of these things. Like, there's so much to go over, so many aspects. It's hard for us to encompass all of them, but I think we're on the right track. I think we've got a good balance. I think that only the deserved sit at the top right now. I'm thinking we might actually move GameCube up to A, just to move.
Kind of thinking it too.
Move it out of the B tier, clean up the B tier a little bit, and keep the quality level, because it really was one of the best things that Nintendo came out with in the past 20 years.
I just noticed the entire F tier is Nintendo consoles.
Well, with success comes failure.
Oh, that's so great. Hey, all I want to say is fuck the Wii. See you in part 3.
Thank you guys so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.